anniversary of the Open Data Center Alliance. Just some housekeeping. A press release disclosing the news we're going to be discussing today is going to be hitting the wire at 11:30 a.m. And then 2 additional releases about some collaborations that the ODCA is involved in are going to be going on the wire at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And with that, I'd like to introduce Regine Skillern, who's with Intel, the technical advisor for the ODCA.
Thank you for joining us today. I know it's a very busy day for many of you, and time is precious, but we have a lot of things to discuss. As Josh mentioned, the Open Data Center Alliance formed about a year ago. My job at Intel is I'm Director of Marketing for Cloud Computing, but I also have the privilege to be part of the Technical Advisory Committee into the Open Data Center Alliance. And Intel has been a member of many industry standard groups and industry organizations over the last 4 decades. But what's unique about this organization is that in just a year since formation, over 300 members have come together, formed across 5 working groups, delivered meaningful output to the industry, and rallied a vendor ecosystem to respond. And it's that culmination of the last year of work that we're going to talk about today and look ahead at some of the upcoming opportunities and challenges that the Alliance is tackling. I'd like to introduce the board who's with us today. This is the first time we've had at a press event for the Open Data Center Alliance, all board members together, all board companies. So I'm going to do an introduction so that you can ask Q&A at the end and address members as well. I'm going to start in the end. Mr. Mario Mueller, he's Vice President of IT Infrastructure at BMW. Sitting next to him is Richard Dicketts, Head of Infrastructure Operations and member of the Infrastructure Services Executive Team for Capgemini. Mr. Bolang Liu, who's joined us all the way from China. He is the General Manager of the IT Department for China Unicom. Next is Adrian Kunzel, Director and Global Head of Engineering and Architecture for JP Morgan Chase, one of your local financial institutions. Lowell Bogard, Chief Solutions Architect for Next Generation Solutions at Lockheed Martin. And so we went out of order. Dennis McGee, General Manager, Application Development and Testing for National Australia Bank, another company who's traveled all this way to be a part of this board meeting and this event today. Jeff Deacon, Chief Cloud Strategist at Terramark. Andrew Feig, who's going to be speaking and talking. He's Director of Technology, Executive Director, Technology Advisory Group at UBS. Marvin Wheeler, who is the Open Data Center Alliance Chairman. Andy Gupta, who joins us from Marriott. He's the Senior Director of Enterprise Architecture. And last but not least, Mr. Andrew Stokes, Chief Scientist for Deutsche Bank. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Andrew, and we'll talk about the Alliance momentum.
Oops. Jump the slides ahead here. You back up here. Yeah, so I just want to reiterate, it really hasn't been an amazing first year. It's been a lot of work to get this going, and even in the short year, it's amazing how much work we've been able to get done. And we look forward to the next year and how much more work we can actually deliver as well. So this is really just kind of rehashing our vision here. This is really an alliance about end user requirements. So the main requirements from end users are on security, automation, common management policy, and transparency. And this still holds true today and is reinforced by what we heard in our survey results. So let me quickly just run through what we've gotten done in the year. So last year we launched the Alliance. We had about 70 IT leaders, and we formed 5 working groups. In June of this year, we released the first 8 roadmaps for the user-driven requirements. We entered into technical collaborations with some industry standard groups, such as OASIS, ECLC, OCP, happened in September. And we have 4 times the number of members and representing over 100 billion of annual IT spend. So today, we're here to announce that from our survey, the membership forecasts that they will have 3 times the adoption of cloud than what the industry forecasting. We are also going to talk about accelerated solutions with the CSA and DMTF, and that also HP and CA Technologies have joined the alliance. So just really high level, just wanted to just kind of go over who's in the alliance. Obviously, Regine just announced the steering committee members. You can see the 30 or plus contributing members who work side by side with us in the working groups to deliver the usage models and roadmaps. Obviously, you can see the solution providers, some big names there, and obviously adding CA and HP today. And then at the adopter level, you can see we have over 180 adopters that cover all geographies and industries around the world. And of course, Intel serves as our advisor to the alliance. So this kind of gives you where we are today in the cloud. So our membership has about 14% private, and right now also about 7% public. And if we fast forward 2 years based on the survey results, we can see that that growth in the private goes to 42%, and then in the public, 22%. So that's when we talk about the 3 times quicker adoption, which happens to be 5 times faster than the growth forecast in the market today. And in terms of dollars, that's about greater than $90 billion of spend in the cloud services market. In terms of the actual use cases for whether it's public or private cloud, here's kind of some of the survey results. And you can see, obviously, sales and marketing is big on public, but it's also interesting that it's also going to be pretty big on private. And then when you look at finance and legal, obviously private is bigger than public, but there's still some uptake there as well. And then productivity and collaboration, both very high. So it's very interesting to see kind of how the breakout is. Another big, I think, theme of this is that there's really no silver bullet. There's no one app here that's 60, 70% how people are going to be using cloud. So I think that's good. And then move on to what are the challenges, and this is really the main reason for the alliance to be formed, was to actually deal with the member challenges. So you can see application migration to the cloud is a big one. The next 2 really are security. So if you added them up, they would be number 1, but there are 2 different views on security, the maintaining SLAs and security requirements. And then we go down from there. But really, we're focusing on the top challenges, as we said in our vision, around security, the migration, and how we manage the environment. And now I'm going to hand off to Andrew Stokes to talk about some more.
Thank you very much. It's really good to be here today, both representing Deutsche Bank as the steering committee member of the ODCA, and also representing the ODCA's board and technical coordination committee. What I want to talk to you about today is the alliance engagement. Now, we're talking from a perspective of the enterprise corporate customers about our requirements and our needs in this space. In order for us to be able to deliver value from that kind of discussion, we need to have partnership with industry, and that's what this section of the presentation is talking about. So June 2011, so about 9 months after we started the Open Data Center Alliance, we released our first set of usage models. And these are the Open Data Center Alliance's documentation of end user requirements. So our first 8 usage models talked about issues as diverse as virtual machine interoperability, right the way through to regulatory frameworks and CO2 disclosure requirements. So those papers were useful in their own regard because they start to talk about the voice of the enterprise customers and what we need to be able to see being delivered by the industry. This graphic is trying to represent the iterative process of taking those requirements and working those through a proof of concept with key solution partners to provide us proofs of concept. And as part of generating that proof of concept, give us back feedback on the specificity and the detail of our requirements in order that we can create more detailed requirements and clarify some of those requirements as well. And as those documents come through from a state of successful proofs of concept, they then turn into deliveries of products and value for the entire industry. So our goal from the middle of this year was to set an 18-month target, challenge to the industry, to come back, address our requirements, deliver proofs of concept, work through that iterative cycle with us, and get product to the marketplace within that 12 to 18-month period. And I'm delighted to say that in September this year at the Intel Developer Forum, we had 8 initial solution proofs of concepts up onto the stage. So companies such as VMware and Dell and Julex were giving us solutions, initial responses back to our documents at that point. So this process is starting. So we thought this would be 12 to 18 months. Within 3 months, we already have a response back from the industry. And we're working with these partners now to develop those concepts further and get these ideas fine-tuned so that we can drive this forwards. So we're very, very confident that in 2012, we'll be able to start really seeing some delivery of enterprise-grade quality requirements coming through into the industry. So, as well as having our solution partners working alongside us to deliver the solutions, the ecosystem that we're working with is critical for the success of what we're trying to achieve. And in particular here, I'm looking at some of the industry bodies and key names that allow us to deliver the value and the standards and the framework to allow us to all be successful inside this space. So we are very, very proud to be able to announce today new alliances with the Cloud Security Alliance and with the Distributed Management Task Force, and I'll talk about those in the next couple of slides. Many of you would have seen the announcements and the inaugural summit of the Open Compute project last week. They had a summit in New York City. We are very closely partnered with that group. We see that group as delivering just a fascinating new set of standards in technology and data centers and server design and rack standards, etc. And we're proud to be partnered with them and start extending that framework not just from data center, but also out to cloud computing and this enterprise scale-out space. We're also proud to be in collaboration with the OASIS group and also with TM Forum as well. And both those groups help deliver standards and also, particularly in the case of TM Forum, large-scale service provider and IT solution partners engagement. So supply-side engagement matching against our end-user customer requirements. So this goal of we want to be the voice of the customer, we want to document our requirements, and then we want to link that through with the industry bodies and with the solution partners to be able to deliver that value back to the industry. So let me talk now more about the 2 companies that we're announcing today a deep collaboration with. The first is the Cloud Security Alliance. And our #1 challenge as large enterprise corporations in this space is security of the cloud. By far and away, that's our regulators' concern, our senior managers' concern, our risk managers' concern. This alliance, this CSA, is one of the preeminent names in this space for delivering security, thought leadership, and standards in this space. So we're very proud here to align ODCA with the CSA. 2 of our 8 papers that we released this year were in this security space around provider assurance and compliance monitoring. And we have our unique viewpoint of how this space should be fleshed out in terms of requirements. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that there isn't a dissonant message in the industry. We want to make sure that the voice of the CSA and the voice of the ODCA very tightly aligns. So in particular, the CSA Cloud Audit Program and the CSA STAR Program are programs that we certainly support, and we want to see a tighter alignment between that and our requirements that we released earlier this year. So the goal of bringing those 2 papers together in the first half of 2012, we're going to get to a consistent set of cloud security requirements for medium to large-scale enterprise cloud adoption in this space. Second thing with this CSA partnership is CSA's got a program called the Knowledge Certification Program, the CCSK. And what we want to do is make sure that we fully support that from ODCA. We'll put senior members from our team into that program and make sure that as that knowledge program gets released by the CSA, it has aspects of our concepts in there as well. So again, what you see here is not just an announcement of a partnership, but an announcement of a partnership with specific actions, with books of work, with deliverables that we're jointly committing to for 2012. Here's the second of the big announcements. DMTF, a name well known in the industry as one of the leaders in standards in general, in technology, and in particular in the virtualization space, the owners of the OVF standard. And we saw DMTF as another one of these key organizations that we wanted to align with so that we didn't have a discordant message across the industry. So we're talking about VM interoperability in terms of an ODCA requirement. And some people might think that's just about the binary standard, or that's just about the wrapper you put around the virtual machine, which you get from the OVF standards. We think about this in a broader perspective, thinking about all the requirements to be able to select and interoperate workload management across different hypervisors and across different solution providers. So in partnership with the DMTF, we're committing to working with this group to be able to link together our requirements with OVF to provide a bigger and broader specification for this space for the industry in Q1 of 2012. So again, the timelines are quite aggressive on this. We all have a bias towards action here. We're urgently trying to bring value to this industry, and this is a great example of how we can integrate leading standards bodies and leading consumer requirements bodies to be able to drive value for the whole industry. Second commitment we're making with the DMTF is that we will be doing a joint investigation of industry standard frameworks for cloud software licensing. One of the concerns that we're aware of, certainly from our software providers and also from the industry in general, is how does software licensing structures change as you move from a physical private environment into potentially a shared virtual environment. And this space requires good standards and good thinking about software licensing protocols and the requirements to be able to both guarantee and still generate revenue for cloud services providers doing on the software side, but also value for enterprise consumers in this space as well. So those are the things that we're looking at to do with the DMTF. Next announcement today. Again, this is looking at some of the challenges we saw back from our membership about how do you deal with applications and what are the best practices for application development to allow applications to exploit cloud concepts, elasticity, the ability to dynamically burst, relocatability between data centers. And what we're announcing today, launching right now onto the Open Data Center Alliance website, is this first white paper on application delivery strategies, including infrastructure as a service strategies and the platform as a service strategies. So we're advocating in this paper 7 key concepts for cloud application architecture design. So in this case, the challenges to our corporate IT teams and to our software vendors and partners about things that we all need to think about in order to make applications scalable and elastic and able to take advantage of these capabilities that the cloud providers are going to start providing for us. So this proven best practice really helps lead the drive in terms of the challenge for broad cloud adoption. Bring the applications, bring the technology, bring the partnerships from industry, bring the partnerships from the regulatory bodies as well. Next announcement for today is the joining of Hewlett-Packard Company and Computer Associates Technologies to the Open Data Center Alliance as solution providers. So we're delighted to have these two companies join our growing set of companies that are looking at our requirements from a solutions perspective, looking to see how to tune their products and their strategies and their thinking towards this new reality that we're trying to bring of open standards and open interoperability in this cloud space. With the joining of these two companies with the other names that you see on the slide here, Cisco and Citrix and Dell, EMC, Fujitsu, Huawei, Julex, Parallels, Philips Technology, Red Hat, and VMware. we now have a set of companies that collectively represent greater than 90% of all the virtualization software used by enterprises around the world, greater than 2/3 of the server hardware used by those corporations, and the majority of enterprise storage, networking, and management solutions. So what we have here are leaders from the service provider industry and the technology provider industry coming to the ODCA in partnership to understand what our specific requirements are and how we can accelerate these collaborations for value to all parties. So the message we're trying to get to from this is about how we accelerate and speed up cloud adoption. We see the value as clients from cloud adoption in terms of driving down the cost of our IT operations. And we see an opportunity here of something in the order of $25 billion of total IT spend that we can reduce within 5 years by driving that cloud adoption. In order to do that, we need this to be a vibrant industry, and we see up to $50 billion worth of cloud investment that can come from this industry. As organizations, as technology partners, as cloud services providers tune their requirements towards our enterprise needs, these two come together to make a win-win proposition. Win for the cloud services providers and the technology companies in terms of revenue and new opportunities in this exploding market sector. A win for enterprise adoption in terms of efficiency and reducing our costs of operation. So in summary from this press announcement today, I'd like you to take away these 3 key messages. Our membership is scaling our cloud adoption faster than the industry average. We see it something like 3x adoption improvements here in the next 2 years. And that's 5 times the cloud market growth. So that's representing from our side of the industry, the high-end corporate requirements, a growing confidence that this isn't just hype, this is the reality of how we're going to drive this going forwards. The ODCA, as a body that's getting large international coverage now, very interesting set of discussions and great consistency and conformity of our messages across the group. This ODCA is accelerating the engagement and the momentum. And we're delighted to have both CSA and DNTF join that group. We're delighted to have HP and CA join that group as well. And we have engagement here with the industry and engagement with our regulatory and standards bodies that is on track to deliver our messages for 2012. So this news today caps what I think is an amazing first year for the Open Data Center Alliance. 4 times growth in membership, something north of $1/10 of $1 trillion of IT spend. First large-scale customer requirements organization for cloud adoption, and the first Alliance best practice paper being released today. So with that, thank you very much for attending today. I want to ask the board now to turn the chairs around to face the audience here, and we're ready to take some questions and answers. Thank you.
Our board members specifically about the value they see in the Alliance or some of the results momentum that were discussed today?
Since I got here late, will you have materials and copies of the slides?
Absolutely.
Rob David with Waters Magazine. Do you feel you'll be able to maintain this speed of adoption within the industry?
Andrew, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Rob. I'll take that one to start with, and then I'll hand the mic across to other people in the audience here. I think we certainly have a bias towards action in this space. We think that it's urgent to maintain not only a cadence of the delivery of our messages to the industry, but also this accelerating momentum. These bodies very often can start out with very big goals and then die out after 6 months or 9 months. I think what you see from the delivery, meeting our promises, beating our expectations, industry partnership, global adoption here, these are very, very impressive statistics that we're delivering from ODCA. And as we start to link to the industry's dynamic forces, the Open Compute project, to the various other groups here as well, what you see is a joint desire to drive these things forward. So I think there's a very interesting dynamic that's building here.
Yeah, I think too, just to add to what you're saying, that the other thing that makes it more sustainable is that this is a end user organization. This is the buyers. So were it that it was sellers that is, or driving an organization, you're not really sure. But when you have a group of 300 plus buyers, there's a little more, accuracy in some of the estimates going forward, because these are folks that are controlling IT budgets, and this is exactly what their plans are. So to answer your question, I think that gives us there's a sense of confidence in the forecast based on that.
Go ahead.
So I guess I did get here in time for the numbers slide. So that $100 billion that was being spent on cloud services, how does that break down? What is it being spent on exactly? And then the $25 billion of savings, break that down, and where does that come from?
Does anybody want to take that, or? I'll go ahead just because I'm familiar with some of the marketing background on that. The $100 billion reflects the collective IT spend across the board members you see here, as well as the other 300 membership. So this is beyond cloud, but it's their collective spend across their IT environments. The $50 billion and the $25 billion are looking at numbers projected out by IDC to say, hey, look, what is the projected cloud services revenue over the next 5 years? And if we can accelerate that as an organization and pull that into the industry, that represents a $50 billion upside to the service providers, as Andrew mentioned, a win for the ecosystem who are developing cloud services. And then we also looked at that IT spend and said, hey, through the kind of security and efficiency, simplified and streamlined management, the flexibility that's being built into these environments, you can accelerate the cost savings as well and reduce IT spend to the tune of $25 billion.
Okay, but can you break it down? Where does the $100 billion come from? $50 billion and $25 billion come from line item wise? I mean, those are.
They were macro estimates, so they were not done from a bottoms up. Good question, though. I'll think about it. I'll get these guys to think about it. You had a question.
As the group goes across multiple industries, but obviously financial services has a strong representation, are there plans to focus on any industry-specific types of standards or industry-specific initiatives, whether it's financial services or other industries?
Can you repeat the question, please, for the folks on the livecast?
Do you want to read?
The group goes across multiple industries. Obviously, financial services is a big part of it. So my question is part of the game plan to focus on any industry-specific standards or initiatives, whether in financial services or other types of industries?
Dennis, you're representative of the financial industry, but non-Wall Street, or non-New York based.
I'm from down in Australia. Regulatory, privacy, and security. And we've already done use cases for regulatory and security.
Specifically in financial services?
Absolutely. Well, no, broader than that.
I think one of the takeaways is that when we have sessions, and like as you mentioned, from BMW to banks to Lockheed to everything, when it gets into the core issues, it's a very horizontal type thing that is not a ton different, other than there are certain little certain things for healthcare, HIPAA, and things like that, but the core of the infrastructure and the core of what everybody's going, it's a fairly horizontal view. There's not a lot different when you're in the room. If you were outside in, looking in, and you were listening to everybody talk, you'd have a hard time figuring out who was the person from financial versus manufacturing versus that.
And if you look at what Marvin's saying, if we hit the core, each of the various verticals you're talking about, those become the mission center pieces that the service providers and others can actually use and bring money back into them for their return.
One other thing I would add, you know, as we look at the regulations across all the different industries, the specific to financial services, they tend to be the most stringent. And in many of the other industries that we work with, it's almost like a high watermark. If we can accomplish creating the standards required for the financial services industries, then most other industries just sort of fall into place.
Have any of you benefited from your role in ODCA in terms of changing practice in what you do in your own facilities, your own IT operations, things that you learned or might have not done differently had you not been part of ODCA?
I can say for sure, I represent Terramark and we are a solutions provider, and the feedback and the requirements documents are aggressively being built into our products and services. And over time, as additional requirements and papers are published, they'll definitely, you know, be mainlined into our products.
And as a consumer of services, we've been building the use case information into our RFPs when we go to market for services.
Yeah, and I'm from a service provider as well, Capgemini, and one of the things that inhibits people moving into cloud is security. And so adopting the standards and building them into what we do gives people a sense of security, and it will accelerate cloud adoption. So it's in everybody's best interest to do it. So we find it very useful to be part of this group to enable us to get ahead of the game on that.
Richard, can you pass it to Adrian?
Yeah, and as far as JP Morgan Chase is concerned, a lot of our cloud architectures, the strategies we're putting forward are based around a lot of the usage models we have here, and a lot of what the ones we're thinking about doing or in process of doing, so that we can kind of, I guess, fly to where the puck's going to be as these standards get adopted by the providers out there. We can then start adopting them internally.
You know, just as an add-on point to the question you're asking about people feeling that there's a benefit to being in the ODCA, something we didn't really highlight a lot in the presentation is just the quality of the people that have been involved in it, both from the board to all the representatives that the board companies have put onto the various working teams. And the collaboration, in my personal opinion, is beyond every expectation that any of us could ever have. And if you were to, again, I use the example, if you were outside the room watching in and listening to the conversation, you would never know that there's 4 banks that in a commercial sense are relative competitors. You would never know that there's system integrators that are competitors with each other. You would never know that on the member companies that are involved in the technical coordination committee as well as the working groups, that oftentimes there's commercially they're competitive, but in collaboration in the organization has been tremendously beneficial for everybody here to listen to each other, and it's kind of like an amnesty moment that everybody's, you know, talking about the same things. And I think everybody's attitude is the old thing of, you know, if the tide rises, all boats in the harbor go with it. So, you know, when you ask about the benefits of being on, that's something that I've observed from, you know, all the collaboration and all the working teams going. You don't ever hear anybody kind of holding back. I don't want to say this because I don't want the other guy to know. I mean, everybody's very forthcoming with information and very forthcoming with collaborative information.
Steve. open data center alliance, not a closed data center.
What improvements in cloud security, particularly for financial services industry participants, but in general, what security improvements have come out of this alliance so far? Specific.
And if you could just say your name and affiliation before answering.
Adrian Kunzel, JP Morgan Chase. I think you heard one of the strongest alignments today with the Cloud Security Alliance that have some substantial standards that are really going to help. Remember, this is a customer body, and our goal is, as we said at the outset, not to write as little in terms of standards as possible, but to leverage as much of what the industry is piecing together right now and to drive that to solve our problems. So that, that engagement for us is very important, and we're very excited about it. Because they've got some really strong standards there that are going to help us work with and not use kind of old-style non-cloud architectures to solve our security problems, which has been the temptation to date. And we'll be able to use more forward-looking, more dynamic, and more flexible architectures going forward.
Okay, we had a question from the livecast. They were asking about, we have DMTF and CSA. What other collaborations are in the works?
Go ahead. Do you want me to? Wait. Well, as technical advisor, one of the things that Intel has done is help facilitate some of the industry engagements, just because we do have a broad network as a company. And you saw a slide earlier, really looking at some of the leaders in standards developments and industry organizations, having discussions with OASIS, the TM Forum, the Open Compute Foundation, the CSA and DMTF today, as well as there's going to be additional announcements over the next couple weeks and months as the organizations engages across efficiency and security and continuing to develop. So those aren't ready to be announced today, but the industry outreach doesn't stop here. It just continues to expand. Okay. Any final questions? Otherwise, we'll let you have some lunch. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you found something interesting and new that you learned about the Open Data Center Alliance today. If you have any follow-on questions you'd like to ask in private, just let us know, and we'll arrange discussion with the board members. Thank you.